Hello everybody. Today's lesson is going to be about drafting. We're going to start our drafting unit here. One of the drawing types we're going to be talking about is isometric. And the isometric drawing is a 3D representation of an object. Typically it's drawn with our horizontal lines drawn at 30 degrees. I'm going to do a quick sketch here of a set of stairs, and we'll see how they're drawn in 3D. So anything that's horizontal now becomes a 30-degree angle. So the bottom of my stairs are here. The first step, I'll draw it there, very close to 30 degrees. Anything that's vertical stays as a vertical line. Not the best artist, but there we go. That is an isometric. Again, isometric horizontal lines becomes a 30-degree angle, and vertical lines, that's not how I spell vertical, become 90 degrees, or they stay vertical. Again, isometrics are 3D representations of an object. They typically don't have dimensions. They don't tell us a whole lot about the object besides an overall idea of what it looks like. Our next drawing type tells us a lot more about our object. They're very, very detailed. And that is orthographic. Orthographic drawings are 2D, so they're flat like a sheet of paper. And we draw 3 views with orthographic. The 3 views we typically use are the front, the top, and the right side. The front is the most detailed. It tells you the length of the object and the most detail. Your top view is going to be whatever is right above that view of the object. So if we go back to my set of stairs here and identify this, let's use a crayon. I'm going to use a color blue. My front is my length, so right here gives me my overall length of my object. And it also gives me my most detail. It tells me where that step is, what size the step is, all that good stuff. So that would be my front view. My top view is whatever is above it. That's how it got its name, the top view. I'm just going to use yellow. So in this case, this top step, and you can think of it as a bird looking down. If you're a bird looking down, you'd see that square there, and you'd also see the top of this step. You would not see any of the vertical edges of this set of stairs here in this example. And then the right view, as the name suggests, it is the right side of this object. I'm going to use green, and that would be the front of this step, or this edge of this step, and this edge of the step. So there we have blue is our front. We have yellow as our top, and green as our right. There are our 3 views that are orthographic. When we draft an orthographic drawing, we would draw just the front, and then above it, we'll draw just the top. We separate them, and then to the right, we'll draw just the right view. We'll separate them a little bit with a little bit of space, and in between those spaces, that's where we'll put the dimensions. So if I draw our object, our set of stairs here, in orthographic, the front view is the most important view. It being the most important, it's going to be the first one we draw. So I'm going to just draw very quickly that set of stairs. Tells us our overall length and gives us an overall idea of what this set of stairs looks like. Now our top view would be placed directly above it, and the left edge should line up with the left edge of our top view. The right edge of our top view should line up with the right edge of our front view. And this step right here, this edge for the step, that should line up again in my top view. Drawing my top view here, I know its length because it's going to be the same length as my front view. And then I have an edge for that step. We don't leave these extension lines in here. These lines we use to bring edges up or over, we'll erase those. If you use them, just erase them. If you don't use them, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that those edges line up. And then our right view, of course, is to the left. Just kidding. It's to the right. So I'm going to follow that bottom edge over. I'm going to follow the top edge over. And I'm going to follow that edge for that step over. Again, drawing the outer edges. Make it the same thickness about as my top view, as close as I can get. And then I'm going to bring that edge, like I said, bringing that edge over for that step, right about there. There is our right view. If we do this correctly and place the views in this way, we do not need to label any of them because the front view is the most important view. It's always front and center. Our top view is always to the top. Our right view is always to the right. What I've seen students do in the past is they draw their front view and then they'll draw their top view, and for some reason they'll turn it, and then they might draw their right side view. I don't know what any of them are because they're turned funny, they're put in weird places, none of them make sense. It's chaos. So that's why we draw them nice, neat, and orderly like this, where everything lines up. The edges line up. Left edge lines up with left edge. Right edge lines up with right edge. Bottom lines up with the bottoms. Tops lines up with the tops. And then any other edges we might have, they all should line up. That way it's nice, it's neat, it's orderly. I can give this drawing, if I put my dimensions on it, I can give this to a person in Hawaii, and they could make it. Front, top, right. Their names are not meant to trick you. Top is on top, right is to the right. So we talked about our different types of drawings, isometric, orthographic, and now when we create our drawings, we need to use certain types of lines. The line types we are going to be talking about today, we're just going to cover a few of the basics. The first line type we're going to use is called an object line. Some people call it a visible line because it's the visible edges. We are going to use black for our color when we make these lines. It is going to be a solid line. It could be curved, it could be straight. It shows you anything that's visible edge, all the visible edges of your object. The next line type we're going to talk about, we're going to use a red, and it's called a hidden line. Hidden lines are any edge that's below a surface that you can't see, but it is there. If I had a square block, I'm trying to draw this quickly in isometric. By the way, you guys won't be drawing isometrics. They're hard to draw, so we're going to leave them out. But if I had this wonderful shape here, and I had a circle drilled all the way through it, when I draw that object in orthographic, I draw my front view, I draw my top view, I draw my right view. I would not be able to see that hole in my top view and my right view, but it is there. So we're going to draw hidden lines depicting where the edges of that circle are. So hidden lines are something that's behind the surface we cannot see, and it's a series of short dashes. We're going to use the color red again so we can identify it quicker. So if I follow this left edge of that circle, if I follow that up into my top view, I'm just going to put some short dashes in there for the left edge of that circle. Do the same with the right edge, follow it up, and then in my drawing it's going to be a set of short dashes like that. I'm going to erase, I don't need those extension lines there. And I do the same in my right. Going to need my top edge of that circle and the bottom edge of that circle. And there we go. We have our hidden lines. Hidden lines, again, something's behind that surface. You cannot see it, so we use a dashed line to represent it. The next line type we're going to use to create objects is called a center line. And that color, we're going to use center lines as green. Center lines are like Morse code, short, long dash, short dash, long dash, short dash, and it just keeps going. That pattern keeps going for as long as we need it. And what center lines tell us where the center of a circle is. It has to be a circle or an arc, not the center of a square or a rectangle. And if my example for this is if you've ever played the game like Call of Duty or any of those games where you're looking through a scope, the center of a scope, there's a set of crosshairs. That crosshairs tells you hopefully wherever you're going to be shooting there. So the crosshairs here tells us where the center of our bullet is going to go, or in this case, the center of our drill bit. Where is that center of that drill bit going to go? Right, I drew this kind of small, here. So that is the center of that circle. Also, in our top view and our right view, right now we have just the edges drawn. We don't know if that object is a square or a circle just by looking at our top and our right view. So to make sure we say it is a circle or it is a cylinder in 3D going through this object, we're going to draw center lines through the center, best of my ability, of those two views. Think of that as a wheel and an axle. Your axle is your center lines for where your wheels spin or go around. Just like here, I drew the center lines in my top and right view, just like an axle. So those are object lines, hidden lines, and center lines. There's one more line type we're going to add to that. Actually, there's 3 more line types, but they're all the same color, and they're all used for pretty much the same thing. The other line types are extension lines, dimension lines, and the last one is called leader lines. Extension lines and dimension lines, they work together. Those two, you won't have one without the other. They are always working together. We are going to dimension this. We're going to say, how big is this boot? What is my length? What is my width? What is my thickness? How tall is that step? How wide is that step? Stuff you need to know to be able to build this object. Extension lines come off of the edge of the object. Say I'm starting my measurement here, and I'm going to measure to this edge over here. Extension lines measure off of the edge. They do not touch the edge, because if you were to print these out, most likely you're printing in black and white, and if they touch the object line, they look like object lines, and it's easy to get them confused. So we keep our extension lines off of the object lines a little bit. Those are extension lines. So those are extension lines. Now, in between our extension lines, we have dimension lines. Dimension line says, hey, I'm measuring from that edge to this edge. And in between, we leave a little bit of a gap. That gap is for a dimension. So that is 2 inches. Anytime you see the quotation mark, that means inches. Anytime you see the apostrophe mark, that means feet. So if you ever see a number, let's draw a height or something, of 5 feet 9 inches. So there, we're using blue for extension dimensions and leader lines. Extensions say from this edge to this edge. Dimension lines say I'm measuring in between here and there. Those are in between our extension lines. Leader lines are used if we have, on this object, let's say we have a circular hole in the middle of that step. Leader lines are just arrows that point to that object. And it says that hole right there is a 2-inch diameter, D for diameter. It might say it's a 1-inch diameter. It doesn't matter what the diameter is. A leader line is just an arrow pointing to something saying, hey, I'm talking about that thing right there. That's a leader line. So extension lines, dimension lines, and leader lines are all used to add dimension or adding size to an object. That concludes our very quick discussion about different types of drawings, isometric, orthographics. We're going to be spending a lot of time on orthographics. Front, top, and right views are the ones we're going to be drawing, front being the most important. And then we did talk about line types. To create a drawing, you're going to be using object, hidden, and center lines. And then when we add dimensions to them, add sizes to them, we're going to use extensions, dimensions, and leader lines.